Hi, I'm Melanie Bunn. I'm a nurse consultant and educator, and I'm honored to have been asked by Dementia Alliance of North Carolina to spend some time on this video talking about how to figure out ways to make life better for everybody. The person living with dementia, their care partners, how to kind of understand why do people living with dementia, specifically your person, do some of the odd or interesting or strange or unpredictable kinds of things they do, why they have some of the reactions and responses they do, and then to try to come to some ideas of what might make life better for everybody. Here's the challenge. Every person living with dementia is different, and the reason why one person does something is not related to the reason why somebody else does it. And so therefore what works for one person might not work for another person. So this method of using the 6 Ps gives us an opportunity to really think about this individual and figure out some strategies that are going to make life work for them and for their care partners. So let's get started. So to introduce you to the 6 Ps, the first P we're going to talk about is the person. The second P we're going to talk about is the problem. The third P we're going to talk about is possible causes. We're going to talk about planning and practicing, and then passing on what works and what doesn't work. So let's get started with that first P. That first P is, who is this person? And that seems simple, but it's actually pretty complicated, because what we're talking about are, who is this person from a physical or a medical component? So people who have unmanaged pain or health conditions, or certain kinds of sensory kinds of changes, vision or hearing changes, that's going to make a difference in their tolerance and how they respond to things. Who is this person emotionally? Is this someone who's always had a high degree of anxiety or stress, or is this person who's been at risk for depression? Is this a person who really is very stoic, or is this a person who's very expressive with their emotions? Who is this person socially? Is this a person who really needs to be have other people around, wants to be in the middle of things, or is this a person who needs some alone time? What's going on with this person spiritually? And that's more than religion. Religion is an important piece, but it's really what gives this person a sense of understanding of the world and a sense that the world is a safe place to be. What gives the person's life meaning? What are the person's routines? Because there's a big difference between taking a shower in the morning and taking a bath at night. And so what are the person's routines? What is an everyday day like now? But what was an everyday day like when they were a young adult? What was an everyday day like when they were a child? Looking at those patterns and routines, and then what are their likes and dislikes? What are the things that will always be a motivator and the things that will always be repellent? So understanding who is this person. So once we get an idea of that, including things like what type of dementia the person has, where they are in the progression of their dementia or their dementia state, then we can move on to really digging into what is the problem. Now, here's the challenge. We look at way too many things as problems when they really probably shouldn't be identified as problems. So for something to really be considered a real challenge or a real problem, I have 3 criteria. It needs to be recurrent, so it's not just a one-time thing. It needs to be different from how this person or most people would respond or interact in a situation. But if we just left it there, we would be dealing with everything. We would be, so much of life with somebody in your life with dementia would be a problem. That's not enough. So the third piece that's important to me is it's got to have a component of risk. And that risk could be risk to the person living with dementia. The risk could be risk to a family care partner or an informal care partner. The risk could be to someone who works with the person, a paid care partner. But there's got to be that element of risk. Without that element of risk, we've just got dementia. without that element of risk, we've just got what happens with people living with dementia. Then once we've identified this is something we need to deal with, it's something we need to address, then really digging into what's going on. When does this happen? Is it in the morning or is it in the evening? Where does it happen? Is it when in the bathroom is the only time? Is it in the kitchen? Or is it when the person is alone, or when the person is around others? How often does it happen? And when it happens, how long does it last? So we're really looking for those patterns. Once we find the patterns, then we can start to find some answers. So part of that pattern is also what seems to make this issue start, and when does it seem to stop? What seems to happen that makes it go away, and what makes it better? What makes it worse? So instead of just using a label, because one of my beliefs is when we label, we limit our ability to see the person with dementia as a unique individual. It limits our ability to see what they're doing as an expression of need or a communication, an attempt to communicate. When we start labeling, we limit our ability to really creatively problem solve to figure out what might work. So once we've got the person, we've got our understanding of the problem, then we move into the possible cause. So some of the things that happen with people living with dementia truly come from inside that person. It's what's happening because of their dementia. They can't see things that are going on around them because changes in their visual fields. They can't understand the interactions that they're having. They're experiencing changes because of dementia. Maybe it's some other kind of health issue that they're not able to manage or deal with. Maybe it's emotional or spiritual distress, or maybe this is coming from something that made sense in the person's history that doesn't translate really well to what's going on now. So understanding that type of dementia, those pieces that are coming from inside the person, and then we also want to think about the pieces that are outside the person. Things like their physical environment. What's going on as far as the noise level? So I encourage you to go to the places where these challenges are happening. Close your eyes and listen to what's going on. And you'd be surprised the things your brain filters that the person living with dementia might not filter. I encourage you to do the same thing with vision. Take photographs or video of the environments, because sometimes when you look at that photograph, you notice things that your brain screens out. Your brain doesn't pay any attention to because it's baseline that the person living with dementia might really create a challenge for them. So it might be the physical environment. It might be our helping approaches. So it might be the way we start an interaction. It might be the words that we use or our body position. It might be the way we respond and react. And it might also be the structure of the day. So it might have more to do with, are we expecting to accomplish too much? Is it the wrong time of the day? Is it the wrong pattern for the day? Is it the wrong pace? So thinking, is it the physical environment? Is it helping approaches? Or is it something about the structure of the day? Then once we come up with our possible cause, we can then begin to think about what is our plan. Now, who's going to be involved in the planning? Everyone. So the people involved in the plan in a care environment, an environmental care environment might include every discipline who's there. It might include nursing and social work and activities and rehab and dietary and housekeeping and maintenance, and people who work at the front desk and the business office, and healthcare providers, primary care providers, nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, physicians. Might include all of those people, but also family who have understanding of what's going on. It might include clergy. It might include neighbors. It might include other people who come to visit are part of the life of the person living at home or living in a care environment facility, and absolutely includes conversation with the person living with dementia. Communication with that person, whether that communication is words or whether that communication is really being present and noticing what's going on. Then once we've got a plan, we've got to practice it. We've got to give it a chance to work. So we're going to try this. Let's give it a chance to work. Let's try it over a period of time. Let's try it in some slightly modified, different ways. Watch what happens. Maybe make some adaptations. And then finally, pass on what works and what doesn't work. Because even if your plan isn't perfect, you've learned something. Even if your plan isn't perfect, you've got some new ideas of how to really make this better. What doesn't work, what does work. If it's better, celebrate, because the reality is we may not extinguish certain kinds of things. But if we make it better, then it's time to celebrate. If it's not better, if you don't see any positive changes, we go back to the beginning of the piece and look for those pieces that we've missed. So let me give you an example of something that happens really commonly. This specific example happened with a lady who lived in an assisted living, but it could happen in a home environment as well. So this lady was a retired minister's wife, and she got along with everybody. She was friendly and affectionate, and she ate all of her food. She didn't eat anybody else's food. Everything went well until it was time for her shower. And when it was time for her shower, it just became a challenge. She would be screaming and yelling and scratching and pinching and biting and using profanities, and the staff were trying to keep her safe, and it was just really not good. So when I was asked to go in and spend some time with her, I learned some things about her as a person. I learned that she'd always loved music of faith. I learned that she preferred a shower over a tub bath. I learned something. She was cold nature, so I modified those things. We're walking to the shower. She's singing. I'm praying. It's going real well. We get in the shower. I'm starting to get her undressed. It's going real well. I get her dress off, her socks off, her hose off, her shoes off. We're doing great. I go to take her slip off, and she says, "I'm going to knock the crap out of you." But she didn't say crap. And so I took a minute and I stepped back and I reflected and I thought, minister's wife lived at home, and so I gave her her shower with her slip on. Now, why did that work for her? It worked for her because the real problem wasn't that she didn't want to be clean. The real problem was she didn't want to be naked. So that became her plan, that she took her shower with her slip on, and it worked the rest of her life. Now, the question always is, how do you get the slip off? If you've ever had on a wet slip, you do not want to keep that thing on. And so what we would then do is wrap her up in towel, slip the slip down, put some warm clothes on, and it went wonderful. So I encourage you to try the 6 Ps as a way of coming to some understanding and then developing some strategies. We'll be doing some other videos about what some of those strategies might be. Give it a try, understanding, and reach out to resources such as Dementia Alliance of North Carolina if you need some assistance, problem solving, guiding you through the specific things to try. Thank you for joining me.